Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining our World Travel Virtual Spring Symposium. I know it looks a lot different this year. We are so excited to be here in your living room. We're used to being in the ballroom of a wonderful hotel. Thank you for inviting us into your living room so that we could be with you today. There's over 600 people registered for this webinar. We are so excited that there was that much interest in learning a little bit more about what's going on at World Travel during this pandemic. I want to say hi to a few people out there. Erica, Marie, Cheryl, Scott, thank you for joining us. We have a great agenda for all 600 of you, and we look forward to the full 90 minutes that we'll spend with you. We do usually go out for Symposium Eve the night before, and I have to admit, I tried to convince a few of my coworkers like George and Jeff to join me for some social distancing drinking last night for Symposium Eve. However, they wouldn't go for it. So I had a beer in your honor, guys, and thank you very much for always being there for me. So we do have a lot of people around the globe as well. We were amazed about how many people actually registered for this webinar. So Richard over there in England, thank you very much for logging in across the pond. Karen in Australia, Mahir in India, thank you very much. Dana up in Canada, we really appreciate you joining us today. We do have a phenomenal agenda for you today. Just a quick recap of what that agenda will look like. We will do an interview with our very own CEO, Liz Mandarino. She's excited to join us on the webcam in just a little bit. Then we'll turn a focus over to a client interview, and we'll talk with Amy Page from Johns Hopkins University. After that, we'll start talking a little bit about what airlines are doing, and Jim Carter from American Airlines will be joining us. He will be talking about the steps the airlines are taking in this time to make airplanes and airports safer, and talk about their routes coming up over the next couple of months. Then we'll switch gears and go to our experts at ISOS, who will speak to the recovery plans that hopefully you can adapt some of that knowledge into your own programs and travel policies. We know our account managers have been in constant contact with all of our accounts, and through that constant interaction, we've helped to formulate some travel policies already in this new time that we're in. We'll also have, in true symposium format, we will have a lot of entertainment going on as well. So we guarantee you, when we started putting this webinar together, the goal and the objective for the entire production team was, let's make it different. Let's make this webinar unlike any webinar that you've been on so far since you've been home. We hope that you feel that at the end of this webinar as well. We also have some prizes, also in true symposium format. We have some prizes to give away. So what that means is you'll need to be actively engaged and watching the presentation throughout the next 90 minutes. So we know there's a lot going on in your life. We know that the dog's barking. We know that the kids have homework that need to get done. We know that the doorbell might be ringing with that DoorDash drop-off. However, we ask you just to please remain engaged with us over the next 90 minutes, and I promise you, I guarantee you won't regret it. So to that end, you're going to need to be logged in order to win a prize. We have a poll question for you to make sure you understand that. Do you know that you have to be actively listening to the webinar to be eligible to win a prize? Yes, no, or I don't care, I really don't like prizes anyway. If you could complete that poll for us right now, we're going to give you about 10 seconds to do so. Okay, Felicia, let's show the results, please. All right, so you know you have to be logged in order to win a prize. We're going to move right now to our first entertainment. And our first entertainer is live from New Jersey. His name is Tom DeVito. He is our product trainer. And Tom's going to grace us with a little song that he wrote. So Tom, take it away.
First we weren't afraid, not too terrified. Kept thinking COVID-19 would soon be brushed aside. But then we spent so many nights watching panic in the news as things unfurl. The virus spread around the world, but we're okay. We'll all be fine. Our great nation will sure rebound in a few months' time. And as Wall Street starts to climb again, our industry will thrive, and then we'll fly. Would you like a window or an aisle? Go on now, go. Get on the plane. All this talk of social distancing is driving me insane. Aren't we the ones who've always been here by your side? Did you think we'd crumble? Did you think we'd lay down and die? Not WTI, we will survive. Oh, since 1983, we keep our clients satisfied with our legendary service. There's no reason to be nervous. We'll survive. We will survive. Dr. Fauci tells us all, stay 6 feet apart and wear a face mask so you can go into Walmart. And I spent so many nights feeling sorry for myself, cause I can't find it. No toilet paper on the shelf, but it'll be back in the store. And you'll once again be able to go get a pedicure. And we can go to see a movie or a show, maybe a ball game. They'll open up before you know, but WTI, we will survive. Oh, since 1983, we keep our clients satisfied with our legendary service. There's no reason to be nervous. We survive.
Tom, appreciate that rendition of I Will Survive, and we will survive through this pandemic. We all will. Together, we'll make it through. We're going to circle back to our interview with Liz Mandarino, and we're going to go right to a client interview, one of our clients that has been very public in the forefront of the pandemic by providing a dashboard to all of you so that you could see the impact COVID-19 has had geographically on your area. So I'd like to invite in Amy Page, Director of Travel and Expense from Johns Hopkins University. Amy, please join us on webcam. Hi, Amy, how are you? You are muted, Amy, so you're going to need to come off mute.
There I am. Am I there now? Yay!
Welcome, welcome. You're calling in from Maryland, correct?
Yes, lovely Howard County, Maryland.
How have you been doing through the whole pandemic?
I've got 50 shades of gray going on here. As Tom said,
That might be a little bit too much
my
information.
pedicure. It's interesting and challenging all at the same time, but we're hanging in there. It's great.
So I just want to say a thank you for from all of our clients for the information that you've been able to provide on the dashboard with Johns Hopkins University. We're going to show a little bit of that dashboard right now. And we talked a little about this earlier in the week. Can you just explain how this went into effect through this?
Yeah, so somebody a whole lot smarter than I am came up with this. This was actually developed by a student and a faculty member at our Whiting School of Engineering, and that in collaboration with the Bloomberg School of Public Health developed this tracking mechanism, and it is being used around the world. So we're very proud of that, and very proud that we have the opportunity to hopefully positively impact this situation.
Excellent. It's amazing the real-time information that it's been able to provide. So thank you to all the teams at Johns Hopkins University for providing that information. I'd like to switch gears now a little bit and start talking about your travel program itself. Could you describe some of the impacts that COVID-19 has had on your travel program?
Yeah, so, kind of initially we were working in 4 different streams, Mike. So first, it was about finding all of our travelers. Where is everybody? Making sure that they understood that there was a narrowing window of opportunity to get back to the US if that's indeed what they wanted to do. And if they didn't want to do that, working with our safety security provider to come up with contingency plans for them in the event that they were not able to shelter in place at whatever country they were in. So there was that. Then we started working with our risk department to determine when the no travel order would go in place and what that meant for both staff, faculty, and students, and what risk levels were with each of those populations and how we needed to support them. The other area that we were kind of working on simultaneously was around meetings and events. So when we conferred with Risk and they actually put the order in for no groups more than 50, well ahead of the state and certainly well ahead of the rest of the nation. So we were kind of scrambling, trying to collect all of the groups, meetings, and events contracts that were out there for the next couple of months and go through and sort of mitigate the risk in terms of financial exposure with all of those items, and very, very successful in that. And we continue to be working on that. And then there was also the support for the community. The card programs all roll up to me also. So making sure that we adjusted credit levels, credit limits, merchant code categories that were available, single transaction limits, so that the community had a credit facility available to them, knowing that we were just going to be dispersed as a community kind of in the next couple of days, and that they'd have to support themselves from a work perspective at home. And then finally, it was about partnering with our health system and making sure that we planned for and had appropriate housing available for our healthcare workers if we needed to do that, which unfortunately we have. We've seen, I think we're on the downhill slide of our surge here in this area, but you know, we have 8 hospitals that would potentially have COVID patients. So we needed to plan for housing around that. So that was kind of our 3-ring circus, if you will.
Thank you for sharing that, Amy. I believe that everybody kind of was working in that 3-ring circus and just adjusting. And we talked to a lot of our travel managers and partners about immediate steps that needed to take place. And so many of them executed it very, very well. What I'd like to do is shift gears and talk about the long-term strategy. I know you're part of the strategic planning committee at Johns Hopkins, and I'd like you just to share with the group a little bit about the long-term planning that you're putting in place there.
Sure. So, you know, again, it's sort of a segmented approach. The first thing that we have to look at is what is our exposure from a financial perspective in terms of unused tickets, and what we're going to do with that. It has a significant accounting impact as our fiscal year begins July 1st. So there's discussion about, do we accrue for the usage of those funds, which is substantial, in the new year, because we don't anticipate lifting our travel ban before the new year. Looking at also the opportunity to reassess how we ask people to utilize the managed program. Those of you that aren't familiar with the higher ed vertical, it's a rather unique space. So we don't ever use that nasty M word. There's no mandate, because that would be scary to people here. So we tend to market our program as opposed to mandate it. There's real opportunity here to shift gears on that a little bit and say, listen, you know, this is sort of an aha moment for everybody, that when we were looking for people, we couldn't find everybody. It took us days and days to find everybody, which was an issue from a duty of care perspective. The lack of visibility on unused tickets that were purchased outside of the program, huge issue, huge financial impact. So again, this was a real aha moment for senior leadership, and it gives us the opportunity to reassess the benefits of potentially mandating the program. Along with that, we're also assessing the possibility of implementing a pre-trip approval process. Since we're not going to be lifting travel ban anytime soon, but when we do, there's going to be significant restriction around it in terms of what funds can be used and can't be used to purchase travel. And the only way to really make sure that that happens correctly is a pre-trip approval process. So we're kind of going through that right now. We're still looking at the whole meetings and events things. We do thousands of meeting and events annually. And again, there's a real push for centralization on the contracting piece of that into my group, so that we have full visibility on what's happening there, and that we're mitigating risk associated with those. Finally, it's also about identifying savings opportunities moving forward and having conversations with our primary carrier partners around what does that look like in the new world. And, you know, there are a couple phrases throughout this situation that have driven me crazy. So new normal, hate the term new normal. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's just going to be normal. And the other one is the unprecedented. Yeah, we get it. It's unprecedented. We don't need to hear that word anymore. So really, how do we move along as an industry? How do we move along in partnership with our airline partners, with our hotel partners, in a world that's going to be very different? And what does that world look like when we get there? So those conversations are happening now. And then finally, it's, you know, kind of shifting gears again and getting students back on campus. That is the most important thing to our institution. So anticipating that there's still going to be significant social distancing restrictions in place, at least from our perspective, it's housing for students in the fall. And what does that look like? So lots of balls up in the air right now, but hopefully we're approaching the issue with an open mind and a creativity that perhaps hadn't been there in the past.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I agree with you 100%, especially with the comment about schools opening in the fall. As a dad of my youngest being a senior in high school this year and going off to NC State next year, I am really hoping that they're opening in the fall, and I know many of our attendees wish the same. You spoke to a lot of great points. I appreciate it. Communication with your partners is the key, whether we're talking about redefining travel budgets or looking at the meetings and incentives or meetings and events programs, or looking at travel policy, redefining travel approvals, what happens in that approval process. All phenomenal points. The best one, though, that you pointed out from a duty of care perspective is the mandate. I think many organizations, including your own, need to look at that as, I'll steal your word, I'm sorry, the new normal that you didn't want me to use, but that's going to be the case going forward. We need to know where our travelers are and be able to service them in the appropriate way. So, Amy, it's been a true pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us today. Hopefully your day is not too full, that you can stay on for the rest of the webinar and be with us today.
Thanks so much, Mike. Great to see you guys. Stay safe, everybody.
Great to see you. Thank you very much. So with that, we're going to give away a prize here. We want to give away a prize to one of our active listeners right now. So our marketing coordinator, Kristen Lynch, is doing a random search right now on all the attendees, and we came up with, Kristen, who is the winner? It is Kai Aputa from Annixter. So Kai, if you are listening, you just won a $100 Starbucks gift card. Hopefully drive-throughs are open in the Chicago area and you're able to utilize that. We'll put it in the mail to you. What we need you to do, though, is using the question platform on the GoToWebinar feature on the right-hand side. Just fill out a question and let us know that you are here and you are active to be eligible for the prize. So Kai Aputo from Annixter in Chicago, congratulations on that. With that, we're going to move to our next segment, which is our airline partner, Jim Carter, Vice President of Eastern Division Global Sales for American Airlines. Jim, welcome to the program.
Hey, Mike, thanks. Good to see you.
Good to
I
see
didn't
you
know
too.
I should have wore a tie today, I think.
Well, we had that conversation
Very formal.
Jim, and I said I wasn't going to wear a tie, and I just started with putting a suit on, first time in over 2 months, and I had to dress it up with a tie, so I should have given you the heads up.
There you go. I won't stand up, though. I just, you know.
No worries. We're going to turn the platform over to you. I'm going to turn off my webcam, and we'll launch your program. So, Jim, welcome to the webinar.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to Liz and all of our partners out there. Really appreciate just the time to spend with you today. I'll try to go through this a pretty good clip so we can kind of watch some questions too as they come in, because I know there's a lot of questions, not just about American, about the industry as a whole. And while my comments will focus mostly on American, you know that we're all working as an industry trying to get this thing back up and trying to reset, if you will. So next slide, please. First, I just want to acknowledge a team of professionals that work very closely with World Travel and, of course, many of you. So led by Ricky over there on the left. She is our leader for the Philly and Boston area. Oliver, which I think many of you probably interact with on a daily basis. I don't know where we would be right now without Ollie. Sam runs our service team, and of course, Evelyn is one of our account service managers. Again, I just wanted to do a quick shout out for the team that's dedicated to many of you on this call, and of course, dedicated directly to world travel as well. Next slide. So before I get going into kind of what's going on in America, I just want to, again, thank Mike and Liz for the opportunity. I mean, I've been telling my team every week on a weekly huddle that it's times like these that you really have an opportunity to share and show what kind of partner you are. And hopefully our world travel colleagues are seeing every day kind of our pedigree, if you will, about what partnership and what partnering means. So we have seen so many unique situations. Amy just, mentioned a few, obviously with unused tickets and policies and interpreting all these different things that are in the marketplace right now. But it's working with World Travel, I think, that's helped us greatly message and get the right kind of solution to each one of you who have unique situations, and that will continue. So I just want to, again, applaud the great work that World Travel does on your behalf. And again, it's times like these that really kind of stress test what partnerships are really all about. Because in good times, it's really cool and fun to be a partner, but times like this, you get to really see how these combinations work for you. Next slide, please. So just briefly, I'm just going to touch really high level on a few things that are going on and kind of what we're thinking about the future. Of course, when we look at our network, which is the biggest piece of why many of you partner with us, of course, like all carriers, we've pulled down our May and June schedule about 70%. Asia, there's very little flying at all, and we're actually evaluating what that flying is going to look like this fall. Right now, we just have 3 daily or 3 weekly trips from Dallas to Tokyo, and that's about it. And on the European side, of course, there's very little traffic. We've got a few exceptions from Dallas and Miami to Heathrow, and Dallas to Madrid we just started last week. And we're looking forward to June 4th and 5th. We're going to kick off a few more services to Heathrow. And of course, Latin America, there's virtually no service right now, but we're starting to see really encouraging trends into Latin America for about 90 days out from now. And so we'll be turning Latin America on slowly as well. Next slide. So kind of looking at our domestic, I mean, most of you have a good bit of your spend in the domestic marketplace, and we've been very mindful about that, recognizing that many of you aren't traveling and probably won't be traveling in earnest anytime soon. We have taken a little bit different approach in how we're thinking about the United States. Of course, we're trying to connect as many cities as possible because we have 9 hubs in the U.S. So through a combination of creative scheduling, we've been able to come up with about 7,000 unique markets that no one else is touching right now, and we're really happy. We're connecting many communities that would probably not have service at all, and it's about 7,000 unique O&Ds right now, or markets that we're touching through some of this creative scheduling. You can see our departures for June as we're thinking about, we're about twice the size right now in departures and seats than our 2 biggest competitors. So we've been very, as I said, very mindful about what that network looks like. And a lot of this, as you know, are healthcare workers and so forth, first responders going to many of these hotspots throughout the country. And we are starting to see a little bit of corporate, but of course, we didn't build the schedule for that. We built the schedule really to kind of connect communities, health workers, et cetera. Next slide. All airlines are doing this right now, but we'll probably take it'll probably end up being over 100 aircraft that we will be retiring, 767s, E190, 757s, Airbuses. So automatically, that's going to result in a smaller airline in the future as we begin to kind of reset what capacity looks like for demand. So again, that's right off the bat, that's going to be 100+ aircraft that are going to come out of the fleet, and we'll obviously be scheduling without going forward. Next slide. Most of our time has been spent with many of you, and of course, again, with World Travel, on just making sure we've got policies in place to handle many of the different situations that are out there, from unused tickets to extending tickets. Most of our tickets now in these kind of this COVID date range, if you will, many of our tickets are now going through validity through December 31st of 2021. We're extending a lot of different terms of our tickets just to make it a lot more flexible. We're allowing free name changes for those of you who are either on a corporate program or on a business extra program. So these have been continually evolving, and I know it can get very confusing, but we have a team, and of course we work very closely with World Travel to make sure we're interpreting these policies and this flexibility for you. And of course, as you have unique situations, we certainly want to hear about those as well. And saleslink.a.com has our latest on waivers. Next, please. So here's where I want to just spend the majority of my kind of comments this morning. And I think, you know, many of you may have been around during 9/11 and what the industry learned from that crisis. And I think this crisis is going to be very similar. While most of you will always hold us accountable for price and for all the traditional metrics like departing on time, arriving on time, making sure bags arrive with your travelers when they're supposed to, we are definitely seeing kind of in the hierarchy of importance, traveler well-being and cleanliness are no question are beginning to move to the top. I think you're always going to hold us accountable for the traditional metrics like I just said, but there is no question the biggest reset in the industry is going to be traveler well-being and cleanliness throughout the journey. And what I'm trying to do in this slide is just kind of show you a little bit of how we're thinking in each one of these kind of checkpoints throughout the traveler journey. And typically when I've been doing our town halls with customers, we can spend at least 30 minutes on this, but we're not going to do that today. So I'll just touch on them really quickly. On things that we're really kind of focusing. And as you can imagine, we're doubling, tripling down on everything cleanliness. And in the first there it says all the areas. I mean, all the areas were being cleaned, but now there's the areas are being cleaned 6, 8, 10 times a day. And all the areas where our customers and where our team members interact. So we have really heightened all the cleanliness activities that you would expect. Ticket counters. We are beginning to put stanchions up in some of the airports. So admittedly, there's a little inconsistency. We're getting all these stanchions deployed so we can do proper social distancing at our airports. Many of you are aware of what the limitations just in the brick and mortar and the way the gate areas are kind of laid out and where seats are. So we're looking at each one of the airports, where ticket counters are, where our kiosks are, and beginning to rethink what does the future look like in these layouts. So for those of you who might be traveling, you may be starting to see some of these signs of the kind of the, sorry, Amy, the new normal of what this is going to look like. Security, of course, we're working very closely with the TSA and the airport and the government boards on what does cleanliness and security, traveler well-being look like, not just on our airplanes and in our gates and in our clubs, but again, that whole journey. Lounges, of course, our flagship lounges are closed right now, but we do have 9 Admirals Clubs open right now, and it's just the service desks that are open. We will be announcing very shortly, it'll probably be the end of June, that some of our clubs will come back online. Of course, the gate and the boarding areas, again, trying to use tools and for separation, and even looking at how we are doing, maybe perhaps doing some markings on the jet bridges, et cetera, to try to evenly space our customers as they're boarding. And here's where I really want to spend the most of my time today, is what we're actually doing to prepare aircraft. And some of this is actually is beginning to interject into how we schedule flights now. So typically a connection or a turn might be 40, 45 minutes. we are actually spreading out some of these block times now so we can do a thorough cleaning on after every trip with approved, as you would imagine, hospital grade disinfectants, but we're cleaning, deep cleaning after every flight right now. And of course, overnight, many of our aircraft are getting, you're hearing a lot about fogging, but this electric static spraying of all of our aircraft. Some of these protocols we've been using for over 3 years on our international flights, but now we're bringing it to our domestic fleet as well. So lots going into preparing aircraft for this new world, if you will, of where cleanliness really, really matters. Onboard seating, of course, we have been blocking or not reserving is probably the better, more appropriate word to use here, not reserving 50% of the main cabin seats. And as you can imagine, this is very difficult to do in terms of social distancing in the industry on board aircraft. So we just deployed a new technique last week. So as flights are beginning to fill up a little bit more, we are beginning to call customers about 3 days out from departure and saying to customers that the flight they are boarding is a little heavier than maybe they anticipated. And if they would like to make a change, we're happy to change them. We're making the same kind of announcements at the gate to try to accommodate customers who may not have been expecting a flight that might be 50 or 60% full. By the way, last weekend we were running load factors in the 50s. So we are beginning to see signs of life with respect to load factors. And the last item I'll point here is, and it doesn't get a lot of news, but most airlines, including American, are using HEPA filters, and American's fleet, pretty much one of the youngest fleets in the industry, these HEPA filters, these high efficiency particulate air filters, are not just circulating air, they're exchanging air on the aircraft every 3 or 4 minutes. So something I think you're going to hear a lot more about in terms of, again, quality, hospital quality kind of air that you typically see in hospitals being circulated on an aircraft through these HEPA filters. So these have never been more important, and you're going to be hearing more and more about that technology going forward. Next slide, please. Back on May 4th, we required our crews, of course, to start wearing face masks. And on May 11th, just last Monday, we are now requiring all customers to wear a face covering. There are some exceptions to that for children. There are some exceptions if there are some health or religious reasons, but for the most part, you'll be required to wear a face covering when boarding an American Airlines flight. Next slide, please. Most of you would have seen this, but this is just an extent, all of our advantage status even concierge keys were extended through January 31st of 2022, and we've lowered some tiers for this year, recognizing a lot of people won't be traveling at the same type of volumes they did in the past, and of course, extending paid Admirals Club memberships for 6 months. Next slide, please. And then just a couple more slides left, and just again, these are probably things that don't make the news, but it's probably the fabric of who we are at America, and that's figuring out how to redeploy assets. In this case, we're running about between 130 and 150 cargo only flights a week, carrying everything from PPE to, in this case, you're seeing even seeds from Argentina to the US. But lots of really critical shipments, medical shipments between the US and Europe, between the US and China. So again, 130 to 150 cargo only flights a week, carrying very needed supplies around the world during this time. And I think I may have just one slide left, maybe two. So again, we're also working very closely with our partners at British Airways, GEL, Qantas, et cetera. We're learning from them on various protocols they're putting in place also. So a lot of you have asked me, what's the future of these alliances and these joint businesses? And frankly, it looks like to me these relationships have never will never have a stronger reason to be doing business with these partners, because we're learning so much about how they're going to market, and they will provide a very critical need for our network extension as we develop that over the coming months. And I do think this is probably my last slide. And again, we're trying to do what most of your companies are doing too, and that's trying to figure out ways that we can give back. And the bottom left there is just a perfect example of 2 Fridays ago, we announced with Hyatt over 4,000 trips and vacations for the healthcare workers there at Elmhurst in New York, right there in Queens. It's probably ground zero for the virus and COVID. So anyway, just trying to give back in the various ways that we can through donations, Red Cross, etc. And then just here's if you want to find out more information about kind of how American is handling this crisis, I have the first link up there, which is a brand new link, exploreamerican.com/global sales. This is, many of you have asked for, can you tell me more about the journey from curb to curb? And that site is, while it's still kind of work in progress, you'll see as we go through the airport journey, how we're thinking about cleanliness and traveler well-being and all the things that we're doing along the traveler journey there. Next slide. And just on stability, many of you have asked, how's American doing financially? And so we should be ending June with about 11 billion in total liquidity, and we do have more triggers to pull if we need to, if this does extend beyond the next 6 or 8 months. And also many of you have asked about, what about our corporate programs? What about the revenue goals or the market share goals? And of course, we're not holding anyone accountable for contract performance right now, as you would imagine. Many of you have asked about extensions to your current agreements. We're happy to do those. We're happy to continue with your renewals. And believe it or not, we have about a half a dozen RFPs going on the East Coast right now. So there are still, believe it or not, corporate customers who are going through RFP process as well. So anyway, we're looking at how we can be more flexible with our contracting with you as well. Mike, that's all I got.
Jim, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. We were getting questions throughout the presentation, the very informative presentation that you gave. We believe that you addressed a ton of them throughout the way. It was funny, we'd write a question down that came in, and all of a sudden you would address it. So very well prepared and being ready for the questioning before they come. We do have 2 questions though that came in that I think you touched on a little bit, but I'd just like you to elaborate if you don't mind. One is around the cleanliness and sanitation around the baggage claim area. We know that is out of your purview more, the airport, but are you able to share, there are so many touch points, there's up to 6 touch points maybe in that baggage claim area. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you're right. That is not anywhere in our slides. And even if you go to exploreamerican.com, that is actually the area we're focused in on right now. Is we've been so kind of hyper-focused on the front the customer experience as people are coming through to the terminals, coming through TSA, boarding, et cetera. Now the focus is definitely has shifted to what's going on in baggage claim. So a lot of those cleanliness measures I mentioned at the touch points with kiosks, same kinds of protocols, lots of cleaning going on. I know our baggage carousels are getting scrubbed down 2 or 3 times a day as bags are coming through. As you can imagine, there's not many bags right now, but it is kind of real time, the focus right now, Mike. It's a great question. And we'll be updating our slides here with more of what's going on that side of the journey. But good catch. Yeah, we need
Excellent.
to do more there too.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. One more question. Can you speak to capacity control at all and the measure that you and/or other airlines are taking with capacity?
Yeah, thanks. I did forget to mention that when I was talking about this onboard distancing. We are limiting our load factors right now, and trying to provide as much space as possible while still trying to provide essential service to many of the travelers. So as I said earlier, there's no question flights are getting heavier. We're operating, as I said, about 20%, maybe 30% of what we were operating before. Flights are beginning to fill up. So we do have load factor caps on our flights right now. In addition to, as I said, not reserving the center seats on 50% of the main cabin. So that's keeping kind of the amounts of travelers with us on any particular flight at a manageable level. But no question, flights are beginning to fill up. And I think this is going to be a challenge for our industry, is how do you kind of thread that needle when demand really starts coming back and an expectation that there's space on the aircraft. I might add that just as a side note, if we were to do social distancing 6 feet between passengers on an airplane, our load factor caps would probably be about 15 or 20%. And as you can imagine, that's not sustainable for anyone in this industry. So we're trying to figure out what's the right calculus with load factor and onboard distancing to make that work. But it is a challenge right now for the industry.
I appreciate that. And just wanted to share with you that my family got sick of me so much that they decided to go to Phoenix to spend a week or so with my daughter out in Phoenix. So they flew American Airlines. They said the experience was phenomenal. Everybody was respectful of each other, including crew as well as passengers. So great experience that you're providing for travelers, especially my family out there flying Philadelphia to Phoenix and back. So
yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, it's been tough, not just for our airlines, but it's been tough for travelers trying to adjust to what the expectation is going to be. So that's what we're going to be working on now, is this proper messaging for our corporate travel managers. And again, that microsite I mentioned is really been created for travel managers to be able to kind of have a C-suite conversation or print off PDFs for travelers, just to begin to try to educate on what this experience is going to be like going forward. Lots of changes though too.
Excellent. I can't wait to see you in person, Jim. Thank you very much. And thank you for the 2 tickets we're going to give away later on today on the symposium on American Airlines. So thank you for your partnership. You're a great friend.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate the time today. Take care.
We're going to go back to a little bit of entertainment here. As I mentioned, our World Travel Symposiums, for those who have not been to a symposium, you have to know that we do a little bit of entertaining along the way, and we make sure that you in the audience are enjoying yourself, not only getting rich content, but enjoying yourself as well. So I reached out to some of our very talented fellow owners at World Travel and asked them to record some music videos. Tom was live a few minutes ago from New Jersey. Meg Miner, who is our Vice President of Operations, working here in our Exton office, has put together a phenomenal music video. I was amazed. It exceeded expectations. All I did was reach out to a few people that I knew had some good pipes and could really sing and say, would you put something together? Would you work on a song, maybe change the lyrics up a little bit and provide us and the audience with some entertainment for our symposium? So Meg put this together out of her home here in Pennsylvania and did a phenomenal job with it. Our production company is launching the video right now.
Only 4 months and my life is still trying to get up that great big hill of hope for a destination. I realized quickly when I knew I should that the world was made up of this brotherhood of man. But we are traveling. And so I cry sometimes when I strap on my mask and get in the car. Can't go very fast or far. I really miss airplanes. And so I wake in the morning and I step outside, look up in the air, there's no planes in the sky, and I scream at the top of my lungs, I wanna fly. And I said, hey, yeah, 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 hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, I wanna fly. And I said, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah. I said, hey, and I try. Oh my God, do I try? I try all the time for a vacation, and I pray. Oh my God, do I pray? I pray every single day for a healthy nation.
Meg, amazing job. Thank you very much, Meg. Again, you exceeded our expectations. So thank you very much. I know we were getting comments galore on the question feature about how great that really was. So you were in your bathrobe, you were in your car, you had your mask on. Great job, Meg. Really appreciate it. With that, we're going to draw another prize. And we have an Apple Watch to give away. So, Kristen, if you could please run the random search. Active listeners.
AJ Dewar.
And let's go with AJ Dewar from Olympus. Congratulations, AJ. Please respond through the question feature on the GoToWebinar, and we'll confirm that you're an active listener, and we'll send you out your Apple Watch. Thank you very much, AJ. With that, Felicia, if we could launch our next poll just to check the status of everybody. Are you still listening? First answer, I love it. Keep it coming. Second, I'm bored. Time to go make some lunch. Or the last one is, what? I didn't hear you. I was yelling at the kids. Okay, complete your answer now. And let's see. Whoa, we have 97% of you want to continue, but only 2.5% are saying, I didn't hear you, I was yelling at the kids. Take it easy on the kids during this pandemic. All right, let's bring in our next presenter, who is Andrew Miller, Director of Partnerships with ISOS. We've reviewed your deck all week and been looking at all the content that you were going to provide. We're excited to have you address our audience and talk about the steps that ISOS has taken, the surveys that you've done, and the results of those surveys, as well as the recovery plan. So, Andrew, I will turn it over to you.
Perfect, and thanks, Mike, and thanks to the World Travel team for having us today. And again, thanks to everyone else on the line for just making the time to attend this session. So I'm joined here today by Jeremy Prout, who's our Regional Security Manager. And if you just flip over to the next slide here, we're just going to run through a couple of things for you in the time that we have with you today. So our main focus is really planning for the travel industry recovery. So we're going to go through a quick situation update around what's going on today with COVID and what we're seeing within the broader medical community. And then we do want to talk a little bit about mental health in a crisis and how you as the travel manager can really help your employee population address that. And then we do want to spend the bulk of our time today talking about looking toward recovery. What does that return to travel look like? And then for you as the travel buyer, what can your role be and how can you create some opportunities there to really create value for the organization? So as we move forward here, I'd like to kick it off to Jeremy here to start. So if you just go to the next slide. So Jeremy, I think we've all felt a really seismic shift in the world here. What are some of the factors that we're seeing that have contributed to the situations and the challenges that our populations will face in the future?
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate the question. If you go to the next slide, please. So certainly we are in, there isn't a better word than unprecedented to describe this, but these are, we are facing a historic challenge. So pandemics and coronaviruses are not new, but certainly the impacts that we're feeling from COVID-19 certainly is something that we haven't seen previously. So we're still learning about the virus. We're still learning from our mistakes and making some new ones here and there. I think one of the big factors, and this is probably a group that understands this more than anyone, is the world has gotten so much smaller. Our mobility, our ability to get from here to there has significantly changed. That also brings us into the realm of new risks, and pandemics is certainly one that we're seeing the impacts of that now. We'll see it as we ride out this current pandemic, and certainly something that we all need to be aware of is pandemic preparedness for the next one. This will happen again. It'll look different, but it will happen again. So let's talk a little bit about where we are now. So as you can see, we have the pandemic curve. I'm sure that you've all seen this, and I won't get too much into the details, but we've kind of broken this down into really the approaches that that are taken here, which is containment of the pandemic, trying to get that delay into place as we learn more and put together more mitigations. The mitigation stage, which I'd say the overwhelming majority of the globe is now, and then heading into that recovery stage, which is part of what we're going to be talking about. And unfortunately, with pandemics, and we've already seen this in a number of places, we have that potential for second, third, fourth, and even fifth waves to come up. We've already seen some of these second waves come up in China, Singapore, South Korea, where mitigations have been put in place, and some of those have had to be put back up. I talk about this when we think about the recovery process, the mitigations, like a dimmer switch. So we're going to see this process go on as we continue to go through, to this pandemic response, where we're going to see mitigations be put in place, to be taken down, and really we need to find that proper balance at the time to make sure that we're doing the best to protect people, to get that recovery at the same time, do a responsible reopening. And while government responses are obviously going to play a key role in an organization's decision on resuming operations, resuming travel, it's not the only consideration that we need to be looking at. Next slide, please. So before I get into kind of the next steps and where we're heading, and as well as I think a lot of you want to hear, which is that return to travel piece, let's just talk about a general update. So globally, the containment strategy continues. We're seeing different impacts in different places. Just as in the United States, we're seeing a variety of impacts and mitigations being put in place. That mitigation is absolutely critical. We're seeing different places where it's being done, different locations, and at this point we know that mitigations work. It's just again that question on what the right balance is. Global restrictions are evolving. We're seeing different changes on what governments are looking at for who they'll let in and who they're not. But really at this point we're seeing tremendous what I'd call gridlock on the global mobility operations. Some areas are seeing significant taxing on their healthcare, but we are seeing increased availability of testing as well. So certainly some positive looks at that. What we'll say again is we're going to see this pandemic play out in different places differently and at different times. So this is going to be a very fluid situation. I think we've seen that in the response. But as we move into that recovery phase, we're going to be seeing that as well. Finally, talking about treatments and moving forward eventually to the vaccine. So we are seeing these different testings with off-label drugs to be used to treat the virus, to be able to treat those symptoms, similar to how we use Tamiflu dealing with our typical influenza. But it is going to be some time before we do hit that vaccine. I will say, and I'll conclude on my march on this as well, we do have the greatest minds on the planet working in the same direction. So we are very hopeful that this will get done because we do have a significant amount of resources that are working on it. So there is that vaccine in the future. There's that light at the tunnel. But let's talk about what we're doing in the meantime. Next slide, please. So let's talk about some, two scenarios, and we could look at this all day, but I'm just going to break this into kind of a best case and a worst case. Our best case is, a really successful public health campaign globally, where we're able to deal with transportation restrictions, but we're able to do that in a responsible fashion. We're able to slowly see those mitigations come down and to change and to have increased mobility. And again, that will be uneven. It'll be occurring in different places at different times, and some places will have to bring those restrictions back up, but that is going to come. Worst case is that we have this expansion in public health, but we're not able to bring those mitigations down. We have significant second wave issues. We have more of a prolonged shutdown of transportation globally, with a lot of challenges around getting good information. So we're having a bit of an infodemic as well as a pandemic on trying to get the proper data, the proper information out there, because misinformation in a pandemic is a historical norm, and even in our current stage of the information era, it's still a major issue that's going on. Then finally, broader economic implications. The financial impact of this has been significant. It's going to continue to be a major challenge, not only in the term, but the medium and long term. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so Jeremy, thanks for that. And I think, especially for all of us in the travel world, I think every single person on this call knows someone that's been impacted by this, whether it's a furlough, a layoff, a reduction in pay or responsibilities. So Jeremy, what can companies do to really support staff as they navigate some of the additional emotional and mental health challenges that they're facing these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something, when we talk about travel, it's always something that I think we want to talk about when we discuss a duty of care. If you go to the next slide, please. Protecting our mental well-being is, it's always been critical. It's something that I think we often forget about. Especially, it's something that we can overlook in the travel industry, especially with our road warriors and things like that. We're now in these incredibly difficult times where dealing with stress, having people be furloughed, people in economic impact, people dealing with their own health, dealing with a family member's health, dealing with, unfortunately, and I've heard many difficult stories about people losing loved ones, and then the challenges around trying to do a funeral in a COVID-19 pandemic environment is just awful. So we always want to be thinking about mental health, but I don't think there's more critical time than now to do that. These are just some of the piece of advice that we've been giving to individuals as well as managers. So learning to accept that these situations are going to create an emotional reaction, and that's normal. It's normal to be stressed. It's normal to be angry. It's normal to be anxious. It's normal to be frustrated. Where am I getting my information? This is a critical thing when I talk to managers and risk managers about what they need to do for the population. Training is a big one. We can give people good, verifiable information. They get a better sense of confidence, and even if it's not good news, at least people feel informed because they are informed and they understand their situation. They can start at least taking that information and understanding it, versus the kind of black hole that maybe some of us feel dealing with this pandemic of not really having good information, of hearing rumors and trying to keep up with that bad data that might be out there. So what's some best practice? Focus on what you can control. A little bit of stoicism there, focusing on, what can I impact in my situation around me, and understanding that there are other things that you can't. Then finally, being able to ask for help or support, or just to have a conversation with somebody. And this is one of the things I'll start off with. The tip for managers and the tip for all of us is, if you have that ability to reach out to somebody maybe you haven't talked to in a while, it's going to be good for them and it's going to be good for you. For those of us that do manage individuals, or really think about this for even your family, be empathetic on that current situation. Talk about your own problems as well. Let's talk about how are we going to build a positive communication environment where we can build trust, focus on goals, not on the fact that we didn't get something done today because we're juggling children and working from home. Looking at different ways on taking care of our physical and mental well-being, because that's going to make a real difference. And then obviously, as individuals, whether we're managers or not, we got to be, it's like the airplane rule, the mask rule. You got to put your own mask on before you're able to help somebody else. So let's make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Next slide, please.
Yeah, some great tips there, Jeremy. So as we move on here and we start discussing from the current situation to how we return to operations, how we return to travel, can you talk through for the group some of the policies that we're seeing being implemented among our client base?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's probably what everyone wants to hear about. I will say, I know that you're all going to probably be webinared out today. International SOS is doing a webinar later today just on return to travel. So we're doing one for about an hour. That's available on our site if you want the recording, because I know that we have got a great crowd here today, but I'm sure that we're all pretty busy. But we do have a webinar that's recorded that you can access, and we have some materials that are going to be going along with that as well. But I'm going to cover the main points that we're going to go through. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the current state of travel, and this is a GBTA survey that was on the 28th of April. So you got to figure by now these numbers have definitely changed. So the question on these top two, 77, 52%, was, have you canceled travel? For international travel, 77% of organizations said that they had. I'm sure that number is significantly higher, as well as that domestic as well is probably grown significantly. And when we take a look at, when is this coming back, obviously you see most organizations, and they're right, domestic travel is going to come back well before international travel due to those restrictions. Even with the challenges that we're seeing, it's going to get there. The big question is when. I unfortunately can't answer you for that as far as timelines, but we'll be talking about some other considerations as well. Next slide, please. So let's get into the actual return to travel process that's coming up here. And right off the bat, duty of care is critical. So we need to be thinking about the health and safety and well-being of our travelers prior to redeploying them or to start that travel process up, and that's both for the domestic and international fashion. One of the first things that we want to look at is this an essential trip? If it's not, do we really need to be doing this? We're having an outstanding presentation today, and this is just really going incredibly well so far. With this outstanding technology that we have. So, can we do these many of these meetings? I think the answer for many of them in the future is going to be yes, from a remote setup. But if we can't and we have to go, we need to be putting these mitigations in place prior to that trip. Everything from, I talked about information and training earlier, proper understanding of hygiene, local regulations, your office regulations as well, prior to going out. And then a critical component of this is optimizing someone's health before they depart. What I mean by that is there's many locations out there that are currently seeing a significant challenge with COVID-19 from a public health infrastructure perspective. Well, what does that mean if COVID-19 maybe isn't as big of a consideration for that individual traveler? Maybe they don't get it. Well, there are tons of other things that can happen. Someone with a heart condition can have a heart issue. They can get in a car accident. They can take a fall, and you consider that those types of, I wouldn't say routine, but some serious, medical issues that are non-pandemic related, and they need something like ICU support. Are they going to be able to get that in those locations? And for many places, the answer currently is no. So we need to make sure that we're doing things like fitness to travel prior to that individuals and potential travelers are informed on those risks before they go overseas. Next slide, please. So, now that we're thinking about traveling, what is essential travel? Organizations really need to define this. Some have done well at it, and many haven't. I've spoken with some very large organizations. When you ask them what's essential versus non-essential, there isn't a formal definition. That needs to happen, and it needs to happen quickly. There also needs to be, when we talk about policies, a formal policy or procedure that governs this. I'll tell you, shutting down travel, complicated. Restarting travel in a pandemic, it's a mountain, and we need to really do this deliberate planning prior to getting into that. And part of that includes things like identifying, what the approval process is, who the approvers are. How are we going to handle fitness to travel? And that's in, with HIPAA considerations on healthcare as well as GDPR, and, what an organization is comfortable with. Providing mitigations, I think about things like, travel wellness kit, mask, hand sanitizer, wipes, maybe a trifold that goes with somebody so they understand best practices on health and sanitation. And then also, monitoring not only compliance, but the issues that are happening in the places that your travelers are going to. Next slide, please. So these are 6 best practices that I've been telling all of my clients on what they need to do if they're going to resume travel. And this is probably the section that I think we really need to look at the hardest of everything I've talked at so far. And I'm going to break down each one of these. So starting off with destination assessment. And what I say for an organization is that you need to look at your entire global footprint and to really have a solid understanding of, where you are, the places that your travelers go, and to understand, what the current impact is on that location. Now, if you want to just look at that from cases on COVID-19, that's pretty easy. You can go to the Johns Hopkins map, an outstanding dashboard. You can go to our pandemic site and see that information. That's not enough. We need to also be thinking about things like those travel restrictions. Can you even get there even if you wanted to? Does that country want you in there? For the most part, for international travel, the answer right now is no. But we also need to understand, if there is a quarantine that is put in place, is that a 2-week centralized quarantine? Is it something that comes with an app like we see in South Korea? Is this something like in the UK where it's going to be, maybe you're going to get checked in, maybe you're not? So really understanding those travel restrictions, those societal restrictions as well. Are your travelers expecting to go into a place to do business, and all of a sudden, there's a lockdown that's presently going that's going to impact them? Is there public transportation available? Is there rental cars available? All these considerations that we need to be thinking about just from the regular transportation aspect. We also need to be considering emerging risk as well. We haven't seen this yet. It's coming shortly. Civil unrest. We've seen the major financial impacts. Locations that previously had struggles with terrorism, with violent crime, with petty crime, with civil unrest. Those are places that I have serious concerns about going into the future. We need to look at those assessments. So really, we're talking about a comprehensive reassessment of locations. Pre-travel approval, critical issue here. Having a deliberate process to define essential versus non-essential. Having approvals that are out there. Making sure that when we get into the next step of pre-travel actions, that those are getting done. So that those pieces of training are getting put in place. People are given kits prior to going out, that we're confident that someone understands what they're getting into. And what I'll say on this, and I'll hit it again when we talk about escalations and second waves, is when travel restrictions come down, they can easily go back up. So we saw this in Wuhan, we saw this throughout the globe, where we get maybe 12, 24, 48, sometimes 72 hours of advance notice that airports are going to shut down, international travel is going to shut down, domestic travel even is going to shut down. I don't expect that we're going to see that same leeway happening when a location sees a spike in cases than when they see an escalation. What I mean by this is to say your travelers, my travelers, my clients have to be prepared to get stuck someplace, or at least have to be aware that that's going to happen. What does that mean? That means that if you're doing a 5-day trip, you need to plan for it to potentially be 30 or 40. You may, if you're in a location that sees a spike and they shut things down, you may spend 2 weeks in quarantine coming out of that. And then it's a question of, does your home country want you back or not, or are they going to have restrictions as well? So a lot of actions that need to be done there. Actions during travel, really monitoring the situation, checking in with travelers, monitoring, what if there are escalations. And then again, if we do have an escalation or second wave, having those protocols in place. Do we need to get people to an airport quickly? Are those flights going to be there? And I think for the early stages, they're not. International flights are not going to be at that same amount that we saw previously. And then finally, that return travel. Someone shouldn't, if someone's going overseas, they shouldn't be coming back into the office a couple of days after that. Best practices we've seen has been that 2-week isolation, stay away from the office, stay away from that interaction piece. And that's something that, we're going to need to take a hard look at, which is individuals that do go back into the workforce, having, this kind of quarantine period on the back end is going to be critical to protecting our bricks and mortars as well. Thank you.
And thanks, Jeremy, for that. So in the couple of minutes that we have left today, I wanted to talk about how does your role as a travel buyer really evolve throughout this, and what are some practical steps we can take as travel buyers to prepare for the future? So we'll flip over to the next slide. I think one thing that I really enjoyed about Jim's presentation at the beginning was the word opportunity. I think in the time of crisis, there's a huge opportunity to really show your value and to show how you can evolve to really provide additional value to the organization. So what we're seeing within our travel manager partnerships, really, there's an increased importance on working with other divisions within the organization, with human resources, with medical, with security, and really becoming part of that critical team that the organization has to return to operations and to return to travel. And I think as well, Amy had mentioned in her presentation, the importance of duty of care and travel risk management. That's going to become increasingly important as things move forward. Knowing where your employees are, knowing where they've been, knowing the countries they've been or the locations to go to. The days of not having that data really is over. You have to have that. The questions from your senior executives are going to be around those pieces of data. And I think really just the one other thing that I'll add here, use your TMC, use Mike and his team at World Travel as sources of industry knowledge, and that benchmarking across different organizations of similar size and scope is going to be increasingly important. As people return to travel, they're going to know, well, what are other companies doing? How are other companies keeping us safe? So if you can just kick over, I think we're just up on time here. Kick over just to the last slide. I think one more down. The one thing we want to leave you with, one back please. So the one thing we want to leave you with is travel will return. And travel will come back, whether it's domestic, international, what that flow looks like, it will return. We are fully confident of that, and we're seeing this in our client books, particularly in Asia now, and it's slowly rolling out across the rest of the world. So really quickly, our forward planning a to-do list that you can take away, and we'll provide these slides as well. Just plan for a revised travel program, and again, review that strategy. Create a business resilience plan, and really just position yourself within the organization as that main go-to and the critical part of the cross-functional strategy team for return to travel, return to operations. And then finally, again, just review those assistance and insurance contracts to make sure that when one of your senior executives is asking, well, who do we have going to London next week? Who do we have that's been to Brazil in the past month? That you have that data available to answer those questions. And again, as Jeremy said, just prepare for future waves. This will not be the last pandemic that we see, but make sure that you learn from this one and be prepared for the next. And with that, Mike, we'll hand it back over to you.
Jeremy, Andrew, thank you very much. A ton of great information. We really appreciate everything that you provided. As you mentioned at the end there, yes, we had a question about this. We will be providing both a video production of this as well as the slide deck, as well as questions that were brought up throughout the presentation for both you and Jim Carter from American. We'll be providing a Q&A also with a blog post. It will be a summary blog post that our marketing team is working on now. We'll provide that out early next week. Okay, I have a real treat for you now. Many of you know because you've had him in your offices, your boardrooms, you've talked to him on the phone. Our very own Jeff McAllister, who is our Vice President of Business Development, has put together this phenomenal video. It's actually a repeat performance with some changed lyrics. So take it away, Jeff.
I was toting my pack along the dusty Winnemucca Road when along came the Rona and she said you better stay at home. If you're going to Winnemucca Mac, you can't really fly. So I bought a bunch of booze and I hunkered down inside. I've been to every room teaching my kids their lesson plan, so now I'm drinking because I've traveled this house more than I can stand. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Up and down the stairs, man. Cut my own damn hair, man. So have another stiff cocktail, man, 'cause you're going nowhere. Up in the kitchen, living room, hallway, basement, dining room, too often fridges rather empty, office, bedrooms, 1, 2, and 3, doesn't matter which room, I watch a lot of TV, closet, storage rooms, all around the pantry, on the deck, off the deck, bathroom for 50 minutes, I've been everywhere, man, I've been everywhere, man, up and down the stairs, man, cut my own damn hair, man, so have another stiff cocktail, man, 'cause you're going nowhere. In the front yard, backyard, side yard, swing set, up the hill, down the hill, public streets 6 feet apart, on the roof, off roof, hot tub, front stoop, driveway, mailbox, liquor store, oops, doghouse, playhouse, wrong house, my bad, think the road is scary, man, you never seen my wife mad, I've been everywhere, man, I've been everywhere, man, up and down the stairs, man, cut my own damn hair, man, so have another stiff cocktail, man, 'cause you ain't going nowhere. This couch, that couch, lazy boy desk chair on the floor, on the grass, in the woods, don't ask, breezeway, walkway, rocking chair, tree stump on the curb, sandbox, pricker bush on the klutz, first floor, second floor, third floor, in the bed, through the attic, back down to the liquor store again. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Up and down the stairs, man. Cut my own damn hair, man. So have another stiff cocktail, man, 'cause you ain't going nowhere. You're going nowhere.
Great job with that, Jeff. Really phenomenal job. With that, we're going to switch gears to our Chief Innovation Officer and our Chief Information Officer. We hired a industry great a few years ago, Rock Blanco, and he's done wonderful things with innovation on our technology platforms. Just this early spring, right before COVID hit, we also hired Ivan Amana, who is another industry veteran. Many of you have met him, have seen him, and have interacted with Ivan over the years. We brought Ivan on as our Chief Information Officer. So I'd like to invite to our program today, Ivan and Rock. Take it away, guys.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate that. Let me see if I can share my webcam. Then maybe you can actually see me. So from one CIO to another CIO. I know we've been talking a lot about duty of care in the symposium today, and I think it's really relevant related to what World Watch is about. Because the term duty of care is often used in travel management. What does it really mean? And where exactly does the responsibility for duty of care lie? Those of you responsible for travel need to understand the protocols that exist within your respective organizations and require easy access to information around potential travel disruptions and regionalized threats that your travelers may encounter. World Travel has the responsibility to quickly identify where your travelers are, scheduled to be, and what potential disruptions may exist. With our new platform, World Watch, we match all itineraries against any potential threats or disruptions throughout the entire globe. Whether it is localized weather issues, security threats, airport closures, flight delays, or even impacts of COVID-19, World Watch has you covered. Our Chief Innovation Officer, Rock Blanco, the mastermind behind World Watch, will now demonstrate the power of World Watch. And I'm extremely happy to be at World Travel. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Ivan, and welcome everyone to this virtual edition of our innovation update. I'm not quite sure I can meet the expectations after hearing and seeing that incredible video from our colleague Jeff McAllister, and certainly, the only way I stand a chance is having my sidekick here, Ivan Amana, to do my intro. So, as I said, it's great to be with you today and introduce you to World Watch, the newest addition to the World Travel product family. Now, I know we've all experienced a level of disruption in our lives that we never thought could or would happen. But with an event like COVID-19, how we think and evaluate the types of decisions we make in our lives mandates that we place safety and health over inconvenience. And that's exactly why we took the challenges presented by COVID-19 to deliver a product that provides peace of mind when your travelers do return to the skies. So let me introduce you to World Watch. World Watch offers travel managers and travel arrangers everything from instant access for locating travelers to real-time monitoring around flight disruptions to travel advisories that are critical to assessing risk level for certain trips. Not so recently, having those capabilities generally meant the bases were covered when it came to managing on a global travel scale. And then this event changed everything. Health and safety first has always been top priorities in travel, so we made it a product requirement to provide relevant information around COVID-19 in World Watch now. Now, as you see here, this interactive map shows the hotspots, including high-risk areas and global virus infection rates you need to know, whether it's half a world away or in your local neighborhood. And we're working on a future enhancement that will overlay traveler locations with COVID-19 hotspots, so you'll have the relevant information you need right at your fingertips. And that's why knowing where your travelers are throughout their journey is key to travel management, even after this event is a thing of the past. And WorldWatch has you covered. Now, our product offers 3 views that provide real-time insight into traveler location, disruption status, and any active travel advisory alerts. Here I can see the total number of active travelers, which includes a breakdown by disruption status from most critical, shown in red, to informational, yellow, and finally no disruption at all, in green. If I'm an executive admin and only want to see my VIPs, it's just a simple click. Another click at the traveler level and you see the active itinerary and exactly where a traveler is on a journey. You click on the traveler's name and you can see real-time flight updates for every segment. Now, WorldWatch provides full details on all flight, rail, hotel, and car rental segments, including access to the entire reservation, whether it's made through a World Travel agent or one of our online booking products. And here, if you notice at the bottom right, you can see how our thumbnail pop-up identifies the total number of travelers by continent, allowing easy navigation to specific regions of the world for immediate information on a traveler's situation. But what about risk assessment? Well, a simple click identifies where travel advisories have been issued for destinations within a trip, including the location, the advisory threat level, when the traveler is in the country and local contact information, and all advisories issued by the US State Department. As experienced travel professionals, we know flight disruptions often a result of heavy traffic or sometimes weather conditions affecting larger hub airports throughout the world. That's why we have a data feed from the FAA and OAG that provides live flight status at airports around the world, including which of your travelers will be departing or arriving in those airports within a defined travel period. And our flights view lets you see the actual flight route for every active trip, color-coded by disruption status. And finally, my favorite and perhaps I believe the coolest feature of all is our flight board monitor. So imagine all the departures and arrivals from all the airlines at all the airports across the world squeezed into one view. Well, WorldWatch has it. Now, this screen that you see here is refreshed every 3 seconds to reflect all travelers, their itinerary, actual flight status, any reasons for delays, and the actual delay measured in time. Maybe you're interested in seeing cancellations by a particular airline. Then all you have to do, as you see here, is select from a wide range of filter options, even export the results in PDF or Excel for those meet and greet transportation pickup situations. Now, there's a whole bunch more I could show you, but that's all we have time for today. So, give us an opportunity to arrange a time and show you all the great ways WorldWatch is there to help keep your travelers safe. Thank you, and now I'll turn it back over to you, Mike, and everyone be well and stay safe.
Rock, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate all the information that you and Ivan shared. Really miss seeing you in the office and picking your brain with all the technology innovations that you're giving us here at World Travel. Again, as Rock mentioned, please reach out to your account manager. Get more information about WorldWatch. We are offering a free trial of WorldWatch through August, so please reach out to your account manager. If you're a prospect, ask your salesperson for a demo. We'd be happy to give you a demo of WorldWatch as well. So with that, we fixed some technology issues that we are having, and I would like to invite Liz Mandarino, our CEO. Liz, hi.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to
Great.
see you, Mike. Nice to see your smiling face. It's been a while, but thank you very much.
Here's a virtual hug, Liz. I miss seeing you in the office. Virtual hug. We wanted to kick off the symposium with some of the great things that World Travel has been doing since March and since this happened. So could you just touch on a few of those great things?
Sure. In March, particularly March 18th, we closed our offices on that day and had sent everyone home over a course of time starting in March. And what we did then was we enacted salary reductions for our staff in order to prevent furloughs or layoffs. Since everyone at World Travel is an employee owner, it was widely accepted. And we've always been taught by Jim Wells that we want to make sure that we're prepared for a rainy day, and World Travel is strong, and we have been prepared for that rainy day. So we've utilized our time very well, and we have done tons and tons of projects. We will be introducing a new, well, most of it is done, but the new itinerary lease is out. We're enhancing our unused ticket process to incorporate the new COVID-19 waivers and new airline utilization of deadlines for utilization of tickets. We've got a lot of technology and reporting enhancements, World Watch, World Hub, all of those things are a product of how well we've used this time. In addition to that, our Learn department has conducted 122 different sessions for training. Some of those include data security, soft skills, international skills, and learning more about our global network and updates and the benefits of that. We also have a learning LMS tool, and there have been over 8,500 courses taken by our staff. So we definitely have utilized our time well. We also hosted a client advisory board virtually a few weeks ago and have asked them to stay on the remainder of this year since we felt it was best not to start a new board until January.
Great, thank you. It was great seeing our advisory board. Many of our advisory board members are on the call today, so thank you very much for your time and for the time you'll dedicate to the rest of the year to staying on our board. Liz, we often hear from our clients that World Travel is a real differentiator in the market because of how client-focused we are. We're not focused on acquisitions. We're not focused on anything else other than providing a travel management experience top of notch for our clients. So could you speak to some of the comments that we've heard along the way and some of the things that our clients are telling us?
Yes, as we all know, our people are the true differentiator at World Travel. And a few things that I believe, or maybe I'll just say the most important thing that I believe through COVID-19 that makes World Travel the differentiator is that we've kept all of our people. And we have developed this unused ticket process that I should say not developed, we've enhanced for the COVID-19. It takes an awful lot of bandwidth to do that, a ton of bandwidth to do that. So when we come out on the other side, we're going to be 100% ready to service our customers that I don't believe our competitors are going to be prepared to do because they haven't had the bandwidth to do that. So we will be ready to service efficiently and quickly, which is definitely going to give us an edge. Because once travel gets back, that's all people want. They want travel to be serviced efficiently and quickly. We had a comment from one of our customers who had been on a call that an airline was hosting, and she had mentioned to me that a lot of the folks on that call were complaining about they weren't able to get a hold of their TMC, they weren't able to get a hold of their account manager, and they were left with not being able to get the answers or the support that they needed. So for sure, World Travel is going to come out of this on the other side a much better company because of all the things that I laid out about the training and all of the things we never get to. We were able to get to them during this period and we were able to get them done. So again, we're going to come out a better company in the end, and that's the differentiator.
Great, Liz. Thank you very much. World Watch is a perfect example of that. The work that's been done on World Watch, the incorporation of the COVID map, it's just amazing stuff. It's been a true pleasure working with the team of 540 fellow owners over the past 2 months. So Liz, any final words? Thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry for the technical difficulty that happened in the beginning, but we got past it.
We sure did. Thank you. I'm just happy to have the opportunity to speak to our customers and our prospective customers. And thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, stay well.
Great, thanks, Liz. If it's okay with you, I'm going to give away 2 airline tickets. So we're going to go to our last prize of the day. we're doing this a little bit earlier because I know we're coming up on 12 o'clock, and I know some of you may have 12 o'clock webinars that you need to jump on. We're going to go to probably about 12:05. If you don't mind, if you could stay on, we'd really appreciate it. But we're going to draw for that prize for American Airlines in case anybody has to jump off right now. So Kristen, let's do the random search, please.
We have Linda Francis.
Linda Francis from Princeton University. Congratulations, 2 round-trip tickets on American Airlines anywhere domestically in the U.S. They are good through 2021, so you don't have to travel this year. Thank you very much for that. We have 2 final things for you today. Your 2 final things. One, you're not going to want to miss. In 2015, our very own Wilson Velasquez did All of We at our symposium, and we asked him to do a repeat performance and rewrite the lyrics. So Wilson, take it away.
Everyone is questioning, should I go out? This pandemic's all we're talking about. Your head is spinning, no kidding. Did we flatten the curve? I'm absolutely tired of being self-quarantined. I suck as a teacher, homeschooling's not for me. I need a new wine glass, my kid just cut glass. Boy, he's got some nerve. You need to consider to travel sometime. We're waiting for your call, you'll be just fine. 'Cause all of we will take care of all of you. We are here to take your reservations. You don't need to be in isolation. We give all of we to service all of you. We'll recommend how to social distance to make you happy is our mission. 'Cause we'll take all of we to service all of you. Why is there no toilet paper found in the store? Hello, is it me you're looking for? I'm getting my ammo, going to Costco, or should I get a haircut? I need to order some dinner online. Everyone is offering delivery this time. Should I do pickup, Uber Eats, or DoorDash, or maybe Grubhub? This COVID-19 may be driving you insane. We have the right treatment, just get on a plane. All of we will book travel for all of you. Just keep your masks on your faces. Don't keep from discovering new places. We give all of we to service all of you. We'll provide you with expert guidance. We are your greatest alliance. 'Cause we'll take all of we to service all of you. 'Cause all of we will take care of all of you. We're here when you will need us. We won't allow this virus to beat us. We give all of we to service all of you. We are all in this together. We're going to come out of this better, because here for all of you. All of you.
Wilson, thank you very much. What a phenomenal performance. All of these videos that you've seen today will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you Google YouTube World Travel Inc., you'll be able to watch these videos on our YouTube channel. Please go check them out. I want to congratulate our team for putting them together. Felicia, if we could launch poll 3. So, was this the best dang webinar you've been on since you've been home? Yes, 100% yes, no, I've experienced better, or yes, except for one family Zoom that kind of got a little bit out of control, which is expected. I've had that in my own family, my own household. So please answer now, and let's show the results. So the results, over 80% of you answered yes, 15% had some great family experiences that got out of control, and 2% of you know you've experienced better. So we'd love your feedback. We're going to send out a survey at the end of this. We'd love to get your feedback on the webinar itself. We tried to make it entertaining. We tried to add in some content, relative content that you would need to hear. So we'll be sending out a survey. Please go ahead and answer that survey when we send it out via email. Our production company, Rip Roarin Productions, who's done a phenomenal job putting together some of these videos, has also put together a closing video. It's just a message we would like to share with you.
Spring Symposium
may look a little different this year, but our commitment to educating and connecting with you remains as strong as ever.
We thank you for joining us.
We thank you for joining us and can't wait to see you all again soon.
Together
we are stronger. World Travel Cares.
What are you still doing here? It's over. Go home. Or you are home. Go eat lunch. Bye.